Modern. We opened up here in October. So Erin has been a long-time friend, and Limor is a new friend who was an instructor at the School of Visual Arts as well as a psychologist?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to let them take it away.
So I'm going to lay down. She's going to, talk about my childhood issues. And how does that make you feel?
It's exactly where I wanted to start. Well, I heard you had no choice, right?
Well, I had a choice. So I'm an only child, and I have 4 artist parents. So mom and her partner, my father and his wife. So I grew up with art supplies as my playthings, and nice art supplies. So like I had nice things to play with. I made my first oil painting when I was, like 6 or something, because my dad taught painting at a university. I grew up in downtown Detroit primarily. So I said to her, I didn't have a choice. I did have a choice, which is not much of one. Actually, for a while I studied photography, and my dad was really upset with me. So you're not doing painting? So he had his focus.
So you also said to me that, what did you play in the playpen? What did they give you?
My mother told a story of when she would be painting, that she would put the playpen next to her and had a book of Picasso, and I would look at it, and then I would get restless and she'd turn the page and I would look again. And it's odd because Picasso is such a no-brainer to me. Like I just totally, it's like, well, why doesn't everybody just, how is this challenging? It's just, anyway, so yeah. I've been seeing art my entire life. I would spend the weekends going to art openings and to the Detroit Institute of Arts. And interestingly, the pieces at the Detroit Institute of Arts stuck with me and informed me today, but I'm only finding out later that, like, oh, that painting's there. So yeah, I mean, like, this is the smorgasbord of artists that I had seen, and how they stayed with me forever. So go to museums with your children.
Have you seen anything good in New York? How long have you been in New York now?
Just since Wednesday.
Okay, what are you looking to look? What did you see?
I saw one show, and then that's it. It's just things got too busy, and I live in Miami Beach, so the weather is challenging. So unfortunately, this isn't a big art viewing trip.
Since I am a psychoanalyst, I wanted to go back a little bit to your childhood. You performed the role that's expected. So you had 4 artist influences. Can you tell us a little bit? Could you track it right now when you do your work? This is a little bit of what I learned from mom or from dad, or can you talk a little bit about those influences?
It's really mixed up. My dad was a dyed-in-the-wool painter, oil painter, and my mom and her partner were sculptors. So like I have a nice big chop saw, and I think of my mother when I use my chop saw, and when I use my power tools, and then I think of my dad if I'm considering a painting issue.
So do you have like a dialogue in your mind?
Not at all.
No.
No. They're not there, fortunately.
Okay. So you have your own space. It's kind of
my own mental space. And my dad and my stepmother gave me my own studio when I was 11. We lived in a 5,000 square foot loft in downtown Detroit. And so they gave me a studio, and I've had one since then, and that was in 1979. So it was my own space, and my dad didn't come and teach me, like he knew to just leave me alone. That was his teaching style, is like, go do it, and then we'll talk about it.
That's wonderful. So they put the Picasso book in your playpen.
Yeah.
They gave you a studio, and then they just let you do whatever you
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Yeah. I only now realize how fortunate I am. I mean, people struggle so much when their parents don't understand what they do.
I also see so many students, art students at the School of Visual Arts, whose parents are so upset that they went to art school.
Right. Right. Whereas my dad was upset I was studying you know, betraying the painting medium.
Do you talk to him now about his
He's
work?
passed.
He's passed.
And so has my mother, so. But I still have both step-parent.
That's nice.
Yeah, and I'm close with them. And they oddly, they grew up about 2 miles from each other. We're both from large Polish Catholic families. And like their high schools would play each other, like they grew up in this same thing, and then they ended up with both of these people completely separately, where they have so much that's similar.
In common, yeah.
Yeah.
That's lovely. Let's see. First oil painting was at age 6, you said?
Something like
Wow.
that.
Do you still have it?
I have one. Yeah. Yeah, I do. It's in Miami right now. It's like a figure, the sun in the corner, you know, with the rays.
Tell us a little bit about your daily routine. Like, you go to the studio every day, or what's your routine?
I aim to go every day, and I aim to take days off, because those are just as valuable in terms of making work. My dad was somebody who painted every day, all day, so that's how I learned to do it. But I'm finding now that taking days off is actually much better, sort of like when you exercise, you have a much better workout when you take some days off. So, and exercise is part of my daily, you know, routine. So I'm always, I mean, even when I'm not in the studio is in my head. I'm just not physically there, but there's some things are still cooking. Like the trees outside the window can give me information about what this painting needs, that I've been, you know, just waiting for it to sort of appear. Because I can't force the answers. It's in its own time. And every time somebody, you know, says, make me this kind of painting, I think I have a client for it. It sucks. Like, I'm not good being, you know, taking direction. I'll try, but it's just, there's something missing. It's not genuine.
So you always have to do your own work, and then whoever likes it and buys it.
Right. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your technique? Like, maybe we could pick a particular painting and you explain to us how you did it?
This is an older painting, but basically I just layer. All of them are very layered, and each layer is based on the previous layer. I don't have the image in my head and walk towards it, you know, to just recreate it. It's a journey of sorts to find the direction it needs to go, so that I leave it open for possibility, because otherwise I find it limiting and closing down, like making the painting for the person who wants to I mean, I do commissions and stuff, but yeah, this one's much older than the other one, so it's hard for me to talk about that one.
Okay, you want to talk about anything else?
Well, this
so
one,
beautiful. Yeah.
This one is on mirrored plexiglass, and I just started with a watery wash over it, and then I'm part of this group, this text thread where artists can get things for free, and somebody was getting rid of like 10 plexiglass panels. So I got all those, and then somebody was getting rid of those round things. I don't know what they're for, but they gave me 12,000.
Wow.
And I used 9,000 on here because they were in bags, so I could, like, oh, another bag. And it just slowly develops, and the last thing to do are these beads here. I mean, that came later, and the red and some stuff that's smeared on it comes later, but it's just working one day, doing a layer, waiting for it to dry, and then seeing what it asks for the next day when I go in. It's exciting. It's like Christmas. Going to the studio, like, what are we gonna see?
And you really love your work, and you really love going to the studio.
I rule in the studio. Nobody can tell me anything.
It's your kingdom.
It is my kingdom. I mean, I do say I'm the king of it. I think of myself as the king of my studio. Queen doesn't seem like the right name for it. Has different implications.
Tell us what you mean by it's asking for something. So you're in the studio and you're in front of your work.
I work on the paintings until there's no lack. I mean, it needed the gold, it needed the red, and the deep burgundy to bring the blue to life. Otherwise, the blue it needed help, because having that contrast between colors makes the blue bluer. So it's, you just see what they need. It's a completely wordless experience.
Can you tell us a little bit about, is nature a source of inspiration, or what other sources of inspiration are for you?
Nature is a huge source of inspiration. I, particularly right now, have no interest in places that mankind inhabits. I like to think a lot about what's happening deep in the ocean, and they're finding new species, and that's very exciting, and they have these incredible shapes. And people complain about social media, but Instagram is great for that. It's just like, you can discover a whole world. And but I don't enjoy being in nature that much. I have some childhood trauma around it, because I lived with my mom and her partner on a hippie commune in southern Indiana, and we didn't have like electricity or running water, and it was like back to nature, and I was just like, this is not for me. So I don't yearn to revel in it, but I am afraid to scuba dive. I am happy seeing other people present it to me, because they do the work, and then I get to enjoy the fruits of their labor and use them as jumping off places to imagine other things.
Can you tell us a little bit? It sounds like there's a kind of a spiritual element to your work. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
There's definitely a spiritual element to my work. However, I don't know how to talk about it. I really don't, and I'm not actually comfortable yet talking about it.
Okay.
It's something that, like, people say, you know, do you believe in God? And I'm like, that's a really personal question. You know, that's not really your business. So I don't spend time talking about it. I just, I'm reading a book about Hilma af Klint and her spiritual journey. And I hope to learn a lot from that, what kind of language, what kind of ideas, because I grew up with no religion. I mean, art was our religion. She studied, or she was very interested in anthroposophy, which I went to Rudolf Steiner school, and anthroposophy was created by Rudolf Steiner, so it's like I know these things and I don't know I know them. Sort of like the same with the museum. It's, you know, I'm just circling back and discovering things. Also, I went to this school called the Farm School that was based on the teachings of Krishnamurti, and I'm not sure which one. And that's where I experienced a lot of nature, like, you know, just being a kid running around and, you know, just playing in the hills and the snow and sledding, and, you know, they really had us, you know, looking at things and discovering things and seeing animals being born right at the school, you know, because it was connected to a farm. So all of that is showing up again.
I think these are, yeah, I think these are the questions I had in mind. Anybody else have any questions for that? That's okay? Yeah.
Sure. You work in layers. Are there times where you make mistakes in the layer and you're like, wait a second.
Paint over it.
Right, but I don't like, I'm now missing something that I loved about it before that I did. How do you figure that out? Like,
it is what it is. It's going. It has a life of its own. That, you know, talking about spirituality, that I'm not driving. I'm responding. But, you know, what am I going to say? Like, God tells me how to make my paintings. Like, you know, that's just absurd. But there's a way that's kind of how it feels. Just when you're in the zone and you're just in the flow, it comes, you know, divinely. But if I paint over something that I don't like, that I like, I figure, well, I did it before, I can probably do it again. Or I just don't worry about it. Yeah?
So you've been making art all your life, and you've just named 3 different places you've lived. Does this zone change depending on what environment you're in? How much does that speak to your work?
I found leaving the Northeast and moving to Miami Beach that my color sense changed a lot, and I was, it was really refreshing because it gets boring to just keep doing what you do. Yes, but then at the same time, I don't make Florida art, right?
Right.
Thank you.
And then my husband and I plan to build a house in the Yucatan, and I'm really excited to get the Mayan influence and their ancient culture and just the shapes and the colors, and who knows what's going to happen to my work, but it's still going to look like my work. Jerry?
So when you were younger, in high school and college, and I think even in graduate school, you did more representational work. Your father was very representational, very detail-oriented painter. What made you change? Like, what switch flipped to take you from, you know, it must have been a scary step to take, you know. All your influences before that were very much, you know, representational, and then all of a sudden I was there, so I kind of remember seeing it happen. But I was just wondering now, with hindsight, what do you see was the switch, and what made you change?
Well, I was painting, you know, these paintings, and then I decided to start painting swimmers. And I got less interested in the figure and more interested in the water, and I sort of think of it like the swimmer swam away and I was left with the water, and water lends itself so easily to the balance between abstraction and representation, so I felt pretty comfortable there. And, you know, you just keep going. You know, you have to have, you know, a kind of bravery, I guess.
Was there any apprehension about going there, or was this the transition was pretty slow then?
I just throw those away.
Yeah.
If I wanted, I mean, nothing's permanent.
Yeah.
You know, so I didn't have to commit. There wasn't a commitment point. It's not like getting married or something. Jerry's my ex-husband.
Still no commitment.
So he actually, we had a loft on 28th between 5th and 6th, and it was at that point that the transition between figuration to abstraction happened. Mark was there.
I will this meeting.
Ed?
Hi, you have had the experience of a daily practice for a long time, and you spoke of kind of being in a place at its optimum where things drop, right? And that, I'm assuming, may mean like having the ability to stay out of your own way when you're doing this. And so those challenges of getting in your way during your process, how have those challenges changed or metamorphosized or developed or gone away over the course of time with your practice?
I don't know exactly. I mean, I can just say, you just stay open. It's just a matter of staying open, and I've always just stayed open and just let it happen and, you know, see what happens. Trying to think of when I get in my own way. I more get in my own way in my personal life than in my creative life. Yeah?
You said that your process is like a journey, and I assume that without predetermined destination. So how do you know when to stop?
When the painting stops asking for something, I mean, that's the big question people ask artists. How do you know when it's done? You know. It's like, how do you know when you're in love? You just know. I mean, it met all the requirements. So I can finish the painting. And I get excited about doing the next one also. I mean, somebody asked me, do you know what an artist's favorite painting is? I said, the one they're working on. They're like, how did you know that? Because it's how we're all like in love, like, I'm a genius. Poor Gavin gets pictures and, you know, I'm a genius. Oh, no, I'm You know, it's a total roller coaster, you know, like swinging back and forth, flailing in the wind, you know, like, and then you just have to let all that go and just do it, because that's a way of getting in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, did everybody have donuts? Yeah.
So I'm sure it's changed over time. But how does, I guess, the art critic or people's opinion affect what you do? Are you like, this is what I am, and this is it, and this is what you asked for, and this is its own life, or are you like, oh, maybe I should, like, are you affected by that whatsoever, or you're just?
No, I mean, my dad was a great, I mean, all of my parents were great examples of you just do you. You know, you just keep doing it, and because if somebody were to chase after a critic's, you know, opinion, that there's still 100 other critics, and you know, it's not doable. And like I've known well-known artists that just don't even read their press. Because it's just an opinion. And also, art critics, for the most part, they're not artists, so they don't know the creative process. So they come at it from a very different vantage point.
Are artists hard critics? So if you're getting, if somebody's talking about, if you're getting criticism from another artist who has, you know, a process, and it may be different than yours, can you gain more from that than you could from other sort of
You
critics?
can gain something from everybody, for the most part. Artists critique work so that it'll look more like their work, because that's what they want. Like, I was in graduate school, and each professor would sort of start to push me towards their kind of thing. And fortunately, I had my dad to rebel against long enough, and he was a professor, so I just knew not to thank you, okay, oh great, and keep going. Mark?
You have used water and the bubbles, for lack of better, for years and years. What was your impetus to introduce the diamonds?
I like the diamonds because they move dynamically across the surface in a much different way than the circles, and they layer differently. I actually, nobody knows this, but I just figured out where the bubbles come from. My love of bubbles. I hurt my knee, and my mom put hydrogen peroxide on it. She's like, look at the bubbles, you know, to distract me from the pain. And I just loved them. And it was like, bubbles are magic. Bubbles are good things. And then the champagne bubbles, you know, just like bubbles are good. So I just think of it, you know, it has a positive association. And then I used to go to this bar with my dad when I was little that had these diamond, these, you know, windows with different shaped diamonds with the leading in between them. And this comes from, you know, sitting there with him, you know, in the afternoon while he was drinking. And yeah. So they're more dynamic. And they're also not as organic, you know. Circles are you know, complete organic shape, and the ubiquitous shape of the structure